Yo, what's good everyone? Today I'm going to be taking a first look here at the Week 7 NFL DraftKings main slate. Let's dive right into it. And like I always do here in these videos, I'm going to go position by position, breaking down the plays that are sticking out to me here early in the week, and then we'll wrap up the video by putting together a first look cash lineup and a first look tournament lineup. Now you might be asking yourself, Griff, why are you holding the microphone right now? You probably saw in the intro, a little different background. I am currently working on the road right now in Texas at a work conference here, so doing things a little differently this week, but I'll be back on Wednesday getting to my normal content and setup. With that being said, let's dive into the quarterbacks here, and I got four that are sticking out to me early in the week. First and foremost, right at the top here, Jayden Daniels. We're talking about this guy week in and week out, and for all the right reasons. He's been great throwing the ball, but more importantly, that rushing upside has been there. Just really a safe floor player, but he also gives you that ceiling that you're looking for, not only in cash games, but tournaments, and just such a good matchup here this week against that Carolina defense. Scrolling down here a little bit, I also like Brock Purdy. Jordan Mason's questionable heading into this week. Assuming that he doesn't play, the 49ers are going to need to lean on the pass just a little bit more, and this is another guy who brings you that safe floor that you're looking for in cash games, but has a decent ceiling as well, so considering the price there at $6,400, I do think that he'll be in play. Scrolling down here just a little bit off of that, I think Sam Darnold is really interesting in tournaments. I think this is a game that we can probably stack up, playing indoors. Maybe we'll build a tournament lineup around that game here at the end, but Sam Darnold, I don't know if I can trust him in cash lineups. You can see there the floor has been good for the most part, but going back to London in week 5, the Jets did kind of stump him a little bit, just 6 DraftKings points. You probably can't see that behind my dome piece right now, but ultimately at $6,200, I think he's in play in tournaments for sure. And then the last guy that I wanted to highlight here was Andy Dalton. DraftKings is just not increasing his price, and he's now hit 16 DraftKings points in 3 of 4 starts. Again, a similar situation to Sam Darnold, where I'm going, I just don't know if I can go there in cash considering the floor that Jayden Daniels offers, but man, if I really need the price savings at $5,200, I think we might be able to at least consider it, but I do like him in tournaments as well, especially considering that price there at $5,200. Now, moving on to the running backs here, and can you tell we're in week 7? I mean, look at all the questionable tags next to these guys as we head into this week. It's just crazy how banged up these guys get early on in the season. But speaking of at the top here, we got Saquon Barkley taking on his former team in the New York Giants. Again, I don't lean too heavily into the revenge narrative, but boy, if there's one to get on board with this week, it's going to be Saquon against his former team. $8,200 there. Solid matchup for sure, but I think I like Kyren Williams just a little bit more in this matchup against Las Vegas. Heavily involved in the running game, heavily involved in the passing game. Cooper Kupp should be back this week, but that might even open things up just a little bit more in the passing game. Scrolling down a little bit off of this, I do think Joe Mixon needs to be talked about in tournaments, and 2 full games now, 29.8 DraftKings points and 30.2 DraftKings points. Just so much upside in that offense with Houston in general. Going down here in the 6K range, I really like this area. We got 3 guys that are sticking out to me here. First being Chuba Hubbard. Again, cash game consideration week in and week out until the volume changes. He's heavily involved in the running game, heavily involved in the passing game. He's now seen 4+ targets in 5 straight games. Hard to ignore him at that price of $6,500 no matter what the matchup, and it just happens to be a good one against Washington. I also like Tony Pollard here. I think we can go back to him. He was solid again last week. Just someone who brings you that safe floor. Hasn't really had a ceiling game quite yet, but again, I'm looking for volume in my cash games. He's offering that in a good price there at $6,300. And then also want to highlight Tracy Jr. here. He looks like the real deal. I know it's been 2 games so far, but 18 and 17 rushing attempts, 2 and 6 targets in the 2 games that he started, 17 and 23 DraftKings points. Again, hard to ignore that at that price of $6,200. And then 2 guys here that I want to highlight that we need to keep an eye on because it really comes down to injury status here for Austin Eckler. He's not going to be injured, but his teammate in Brian Robinson Jr. looks like he could be questionable again this week. Again, just a really good matchup there against that Carolina defense. And then Chase Brown, I think we need to start talking about him, especially in tournaments. Again, I don't know if I can go there and cash quite yet, just due to the volume being a little low, but overall at $5,900, he's now hit 14.4, 16.4, and 23.2 DraftKings points in his last 3 games. it's worth keeping an eye on. Now folks, before we dive into the wide receiver plays here, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. It's completely free to do, and the channel is growing by the day, and we want to keep that momentum going. Alright, now diving into these wide receivers here, I kind of broke the top plays into two different tiers. So tier 1, in my opinion, this week is going to be Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and A.J. Brown. Again, I love that game between Detroit and Minnesota. We'll stack it up later in this video, build a tournament lineup. But more importantly, tier 2 here, because we all know the upside that those three guys bring. The tier 2 for me is going to be Drake London, Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf, and Deontay Johnson. Now, they're all priced very similarly here. I think they're great tournament plays, but I think we can be talking about them in cash as well. All guys priced here in the upper 6K range who can hit 3, 4, even 5x value at those prices. So that's my tier 1 and tier 2. But then there were a few guys here in the 5K range that stuck out to me, not largely due to how great they've played so far this year, but just due to the upside that they offer based on talent. First is going to be Jalen Waddle here. Now, I know the Miami Dolphins are in hell with the quarterback situation, to put it lightly. He's only seen 8 targets as a max so far this year, but that came last week, and we know the speed and upside that he offers when the ball is in his hands. So I don't even want to talk about it from a cash game perspective, but a tournament perspective at $5,300. Look, if I'm going for 4x value, would it be crazy if he hit 22 DraftKings points this week? I don't think anybody would be surprised by that. Now, Darius Slayton is an interesting play here at $5,100. Ever since Malik Neighbors gone out with a concussion, he's seen 11 targets in back-to-back games. We can consider that in cash, absolutely, but again, we need to keep an eye on Malik Neighbors this week. If he is back, Slayton's targets are likely going to drop. And then the last guy that I wanted to highlight here, who I think is offering some really nice value, is, yes, Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, he's not going to completely fill the role of Rashee Rice, but they tried to fit him in that role back in week 5 with 8 targets, 7 receptions, and he actually looked really good after the catch, putting up 130 receiving yards, putting up 23 DraftKings points. And if we're playing him in our cash lineup, we only need 3x value more times than not. That's 12 DraftKings points. I think he's very capable of doing that at that price. Now, diving into the tight ends here, and this is a week that I'm going to heavily consider spending up at the tight end position in my tournament lineups. I think Travis Kelce is fine, but really like George Kittle here in this matchup. He's been a touchdown monster to start the season. 5 touchdowns through 5 weeks, scored in 4 straight weeks as well. Solid price there at $6,000. Brock Bowers, I think we need to talk about him. He's going to be the #1 receiver in this offense going forward. Devontae Adams traded to the Jets this morning. 10 and 12 targets in his last 2 games. Really like that. Someone I'm definitely going to look at spending up for. We can maybe even consider that in cash, but I usually don't go that route myself. Kyle Pitts, I am going to talk about him here again. Last week got 5 targets, but 70 receiving yards. He's going to have a 20-point performance here before we know it. Again, hit that 4x value that we're looking for in our tournament lineups. We might even be able to consider it in our cash game lineups, but honestly, in my cash game lineup, I'm looking at Sanders here for the Carolina Panthers again. 5 and 7 targets here in his last 2 games. I don't suspect Tommy Tremble to be back this week off a concussion, so look, if I'm getting 5 to 7 targets for a guy priced at $2,900, I'll play that in cash every day of the week. And then wrapping up the positional plays there with the defense, we always keep this short and sweet. I can't say I'm really even in love with the high-priced defenses this week. I do like Minnesota here. Look, I know this offense for Detroit is legit. Put up 40-plus points against Dallas last week. But 8 DraftKings points is the low so far for this defense this year. They are back at home as well. They're going to be able to create pressure. Brian Flores is truly just a mastermind at the defensive coordinator position. I like Vikings there. I think they're too cheap at $2,900, even considering the matchup. And then dipping down here into the lower range, I like the Giants. I know Philadelphia looks scary on paper, but they just haven't been super spectacular to start the season, and the Giants have been really solid here. You can see 17 points allowed last week to Cincinnati, 14 to Seattle on the road. They're actually playing some decent ball right now, and a good price there at $2,500. And then the last defense I wanted to highlight here, same price, is the Cleveland Browns. They've been been solid as well. Cincinnati's offense hasn't been great to start the season, so considering the price there, I think they're in play. All right, now let's put together a first look cash lineup here, but I do want to mention if you have not joined my Discord yet, it is completely free to do so. There's a link to do so in the description below, as well as in the pinned comment below. We now have over 750 people in there talking multiple different sports for DraftKings, as well as their favorite sports bets. But let's put this first look cash lineup together here. We're going to start at the quarterback position. Let's just spend up for Jaden Daniels. He's truly been fantastic as a rookie. And then this seems like a week where I'll probably be going with 3 running backs. So actually, I'm going to put in Kyron to start here, and then we'll dip into that 6K range. I'm going to go with Chuba, and then come back here and go with Tony Pollard. Now, we're going to need to save some money here a little bit at the wide receiver position, but just for the hell of it, I want to see what I can do with this. I'm going to stack up McLaurin there with Jaden Daniels, and let's go put in Juju at $4,000, get a little money back there. And let's go to the tight end here next and put in Sanders at $2,900. That's going to free up some money as well. And we'll just go to the defense here as well. I'm going to lean on the Giants here for a cash build. $5,300 left over at the wide receiver position. Not going to go Jalen Waddle in my cash lineup. Like I said, more of a tournament play for me. So Darius Slayton here again, 11 targets in back-to-back games. Assuming that Malik Neighbors is not going to play here this week, he could be another cash game consideration. And now we're going to put together that first look tournament lineup. I talked about this game between the Vikings and the Lions quite a bit, so let's build a game stack around that. We'll go Sammy Darnold here. Let's stack him up with his top 2 pass catchers in Justin Jefferson. And I didn't talk about him earlier, but let's put in Jordan Addison as well at $5,600. And actually, I know it's expensive, but let's run it back there with Amon-Ra and see if we can make that work. Okay, so $4,200 left over per player. Let's go to the running back position. Scroll down here a little bit. Austin Eckler, really good spot this week, assuming that Brian Robinson Jr. does not play. He could have himself a day. I still need to save some money here at the running back position, so let's put in Tracy Jr. for starters. All right, now at the tight end position, I'm just going to lock in Sanders again here at $2,900. And let's put a defense. Let's put the cheapest defense in. Oh, is that Titans against Buffalo on the road? Ew, yikes. Okay, well, we're going to start there at least, and then $4,100 left over. That's Juju, right? And I actually don't mind that in tournaments either, so we'll put him in. And what I could do now, technically, I do like Tracy there at that price, but I could pivot off of that and go up to Tony Pollard here again. And then you get a little running back defense correlation, although I don't necessarily love that against Buffalo. That's why it's a tournament lineup as well. Alright everyone, that is going to wrap up this video here for today. As always, thank y'all for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here on this channel. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that.